Welcome back to Cask and Point. Today we are trying E.H. Taylor's small batch finished in a honey barrel. Essentially, a good buddy of mine took a bunch of E.H. Taylor's small batch. He then took a barrel that can fit 20, 30, 40 bottles of whiskey in it. He then aged honey in that barrel for several months, allowing that honey to mix with the barrel, mix with the oak, really get in there. He then drained the barrel from the honey, and then he put that E.H. Taylor small batch into that barrel, and then aged it for another 2 or 3 months. And so as it was going in and out of the oak, that kind of honey notes were really mixing into it. And the end product is an E.H. Taylor small batch finished in a honey barrel. Now, I've been hearing a lot of these experiments come up recently. People aging Weller Antique 107 in honey and maple and all these funky things. And I've been intrigued by them, but I've never tried any of them. So I'm really happy today that we got a sample in that we're going to get to try. And this one sounds interesting. I mean, it's about a 6-month process, and this guy seems to really know what he's doing. I'll put a photo of the bottles that he's done on the screen, but he clearly has done quite a bit of aging in his time. And look, I'm all for it. I tend to prefer, the whiskey being the best whiskey it possibly be from the distillery itself. That's why I never really add water or ice into my whiskey, and really just I'm aiming to find the most perfect pour that doesn't require that kind of work. But also, drink your whiskey the way you want to drink whiskey. If this is going to turn a $50, $60 bottle into the quality of a $100 or $200 or $300 bottle and save all that money, and you're going to have fun while doing it, do it. Have fun. So I'm super excited to try this with you guys here today. Let's get right into it. Honey is the most prominent note on this nose. I'm not particularly surprised. It's pretty interesting though. There's definitely some bourbon notes that are cutting through this, some caramel, a little bit of maple as well, and there's definitely some red fruit in there, and there's also some like green apple in there, some vanilla custard in this. Definitely smells very sweet, but not just like honey. Like the honey is definitely the most dominant note, but there are actually quite a few notes going on here. And there's some sweet oak in there. There's a little bit of tannic oak, very, very little though. But it smells sweet. There's definitely a little bit of ethanol, but I'm not getting any rye spice, any pepper, anything like that. Really just a bourbon, standard bourbon flavors, but then this mix of honey, vanilla custard, maple, these sweet things. Honey obviously being the most dominant, but let's try it and see how these flavors follow through. Now, before we try it though, I will say, this is not a clear whiskey. It is very clearly a little bit opaque. Kind of looks like you mixed actual honey into E.H. Taylor small batch, which is essentially what happened. So really cool here. Not typical to drink a whiskey that looks like this. Typically, I think that something is wrong with a whiskey if it looked like that. But nothing's wrong. It's just finished in a honey barrel. So let's try it. Oh, that's interesting. So the honey is there in the beginning, and then it just tastes like E.H. Taylor small batch. So, and this is one of the whiskeys, at least on that first sip, I would actually say, it's hard to say actually, if it's under, I initially was going to say this is not finished long enough, but I'm also thinking if it had more of a honey flavor, it would just taste like honey. So it is actually nice that there's a balance here going on, but that's interesting. I don't know how much I like that. I think it's good, and it's definitely a really nice step up above normal E.H. Taylor small batch, but it's not that much of a step up. Now, I'm not a fan of E.H. Taylor. I like their barrel proof. It's an amazing whiskey, but their straight rye is decent, nothing absolutely special. I think their single barrel is decent, nothing absolutely special, especially for bottles that are $150 on secondary. For MSRP at $80, they're more reasonable, but there's still better stuff out there, even at that price point. And so small batch being so much worse than those, to me, it's just not a bottle that I go for. I wouldn't even buy it for MSRP unless it was for a friend. But this is interesting. This is a lot better for what it's worth. It is definitely gonna really bump up these typical bourbony E.H. Taylor flavor notes of just your standard Buffalo Trace, medicinal cherry and caramel and plum, and really add in a ton of honey and vanilla and sweet oak into this, which I'm really liking. But let's take a second sip. In the mouth, it tastes really sweet. It tastes like there's a little bit of honey in this. And there is likely a little bit of honey in this. And that honey is strong. What I wonder is how much different this would be if I just took E.H. Taylor small batch, put a little bit of honey in it, and just stirred it up. Or shaked it enough so that the honey really mixed in with it. But I'm wondering how much that aging really made the difference versus just mixing a little bit of honey into this, because it really does taste very similar to H. Taylor Small Batch, just with some honey in the front palate. And that honey, logically, is just not really following through in the pour. So by the end of the pour, it's just going to taste like your typical, rye spice, pepper on top of those bourbony flavors. And the finish is probably short to medium. It's good, but it's not blowing me away. But it's funky. It's funky. And I think if you like honey on your whiskey and you like H. Taylor Small Batch, this is going to be delicious. Absolutely delicious. But as somebody that doesn't really have a particular affinity for honey, because I haven't had many honey finishes that have been particularly good, this is good, but it's not amazing. Let's take one more sip and then we'll give it a rating here. Yeah. Honey. Just honey. Maybe some vanilla. Plums, caramels, a little bit of roughness to it, honestly, like an ethanol heat a little bit, which I think I just get on normal H. Taylor Small Batch. I'm not the biggest fan. There's like this white pepper taste as well that I get on H. Taylor Small Batch that I don't love, and some rye spice here. But all those notes are really within like a second or two. And it's really hard to pick them out because the honey is dominating the front palate here. And then you're going to get into those bourbony flavors. But the bourbony flavors are going to be like that. And then the pour is going to be over. And then all you're going to have left is like a very light lingering honey maple note, which is nice. And it's actually really nice now that, it's still in my mouth and I'm still thinking about it. But it's a good pour. It is a good pour. It is definitely going to hit daily sipper level for me, which is better than what I thought it would be. But it's definitely going to be at least a 7. Today I'm going to go with a 7.1. I think this is interesting. I think this is a massive step up on H. Taylor Small Batch. I think this is definitely worth the effort. Interested to see other finishes and how they stack up against this one. But for today, I hope you all enjoyed the review. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I hope you learned something about whether or not you're going to try finishing some whiskeys yourself. If we ever do here on the channel, I'll definitely let you guys know. But for now, I'll probably be holding off, but we'll see. But anyways, have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.